I literally heard a male voice, and it said, "Would you find my mother here?"
I had no intention of becoming a sister. I mean, it was like the most boring life to me.
I was engaged to be married.
Mary was showing me, no, God is within, the Holy Trinity is within you. Longing for intimacy, this is where your purpose and identity will come.
We're not a big community, it's just the two of us because we're hermits most of our time in our hermitages with the Blessed Sacrament praying for the world.
We are, as Catholics, are sitting on a gold mine. We have so many graces. And so we have a burning in our hearts to share with others all what we have discovered.
Hey guys, it's Lizzie. I'm so excited for this video. Today I am interviewing two nuns on my YouTube channel. I have wanted to interview people from religious life for so long. So I'm so happy that you guys get to meet them as well and get to know their stories and kind of what a day in the life of a nun is like. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, my name is Sister Mary Claire.
And I'm Sister Carista Maria.
Thank you so much for being on my channel.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us, Lizzie.
Thank you.
So can you say what order you're in and kind of describe what your order is like and what you're known for?
We're not even considered an order in the sense of usual religious community.
We're not a big community, it's just the two of us because we're hermits, and usually hermits live by themselves, but sometimes they have what they call a lora of hermits, and that means we each have our own little place that we live in, our little hermitage, but we get together for certain prayers, certain formation, and so recreation and things like that. So, but we spend most of our time in our hermitages with the Blessed Sacrament praying for the world, praying for everyone.
And we have a mission, Missionaries of Our Mother, the Eucharist. This is just a brochure of our mission. So we have other lay people who work with us, but we both have come from large religious communities, more contemplative communities.
She was a Franciscan and I was a Franciscan, and now we're both hermits.
And we're Franciscan spirituality, but very Marian Franciscans.
Right.
And Carmelite in a sense as well.
Now we're living as two little hermits in Mississippi.
It's kind of like we've had a call within a call. Right. As Mother Teresa described it, when she left her community to start her other community, we felt called to something other.
When did you decide to join the Franciscans?
We'll back up a little bit, to even share with you how we were drawn to religious life. Is that okay to
Our
answer
whole
that?
story of how we even were called to the religious life. Is that what you want to know?
Yeah.
First off, well, in my own life, I actually grew up Catholic, but when I was in high school and, I can kind of liken my faith growing up to ordering a lobster and being served just the shell. It was all about rules and regulations and structure and ritual, but there was no meat because I did not know Jesus personally. And so I was really bored with the church. And so when I got to LSU, I went to LSU, it was a party school of the South, college. And I was studying journalism and even quit going to church because I got nothing out of it. But following graduating from LSU, I was working for my dad for a newspaper and just getting bored. I needed more excitement. I was saying, when will I find purpose in life? Maybe when I get a good job or get a husband, then maybe I'll find fulfillment. And so I felt like I needed more than just remaining in my hometown. And so I said, I know I'll go to Hollywood in hopes of being a movie director.
Wow.
California dream. If anyone else is anxious to do something bigger or greater or more purposeful, that's what it was for me. So, but right before leaving for Hollywood, my dad, I was working for his newspaper And he asked me to write one last article for the newspaper by interviewing a couple who had just returned from Medjugorje. Are you familiar with Medjugorje?
Yeah. I've met so many people who have had amazing experiences there.
Yeah, so I was not really familiar with it. And at this point, I didn't even know if God existed anymore. And if he did, he was way out in the heavens. And maybe when I died, I'd meet him. So I'm interviewing this couple and they are on fire for God. And so after I interview her, she says, well, can I proof the article before it goes in the paper? And that's not really that professional to let people proof your article. But I wasn't that professional, so I told her she could. So she reads it and she says, you may be talented, but this isn't very good. She had some nerve, didn't she? And then she goes on to give me this little booklet on Medjugorje, and she says, why don't you read this and rewrite it? But it wasn't easy for me to hear that, but she was probably praying for me as well, because I start reading the book, the little booklet, and the first message I read from Mary, she said, I have come to tell the world that God exists and he is the fullness of life. And so when I read that, it was really speaking to my heart, because I didn't know if God existed anymore. And it was like Mary was echoing Revelation 3:20, where Jesus stands at the door. He says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He who opens the door, I will come in and dine with him and he with me. It was like Mary was saying, open your heart to God. He's alive. So I was starting to do this. All of a sudden, I'm saying, I can't believe God has sent Mary, not just for these 6 children, but for me. And so I started opening my heart to God, and I'll try to kind of speed it up here. But I still went to Hollywood because I had my car practically packed and I had applied for a cinematography school. But the whole way there, I was converting. And I get there, and in a nutshell, I'll say, God just plopped me right into that center of the action over there. At first I saw that you really have to sell your soul or know someone who knows someone in order to get in. But for some reason, he wanted me to be right in the center, to where he had me meet someone at this real estate agency who knew someone who needed a job, needed someone to work for him at the Burbank studios. It was the home of Warner Brothers and Columbia Pictures. So I go in for an interview with jeans on right then, and the lady hires me. So God just says, now it was just a good foot in the door. I had far from made it, but it's like God saying, let me just plop you right in the center of the action, where all these famous movies and actors and actresses are all around, to show you all the more that that's not where it's at. So here I was working there, but I was starting to live Mary's messages, starting to go to daily mass, starting to pray the rosary. And one of Mary's messages that she shared was, abandon yourself totally to me, and I will lead you in God's perfect will. And I had no clue what God's perfect will was. So it really appealed to me. So I said, okay, Mother. I had a grace to say that to Mary, because I grew up Catholic and my grandmother used to pray the rosary and all. So I know that's a big part of why I even had my conversion. But I said, okay, Mother, I give you my life. And the saints say that when we do that, it's like life in the fast lane to God. And her whole purpose is to draw us to this intimacy with the Holy Trinity, who dwell within us through baptism. Her whole purpose is to draw us to live wholeheartedly our baptismal vows. So here I was in Hollywood trying to seek purpose in life. And kind of like St. Augustine says, you were within and I was all the while seeking outside. And it was the same for me. I was all the while, I was seeking some purpose in life outside, but Mary was showing me, no, God is within, the Holy Trinity is within you, longing for intimacy. This is where your purpose and identity will come. So it started my huge conversion. And from there, our mother led me to Jesus in the Eucharist, which even though I grew up Catholic, I used to think, I used to walk up to communion more concerned about what cute guys were in the pews than the fact that I was about to receive Almighty God. And Mary started leading me to be aware that Jesus is truly present. And so, all right, so long story, trying to make it short, just to get to the point of my vocation, because I never wanted to be a nun or a sister. I thought it was for those who were boring or unpopular, who couldn't find a husband. But I started going to Eucharistic adoration because our mother led me there. And I started to get to know Jesus in the Eucharist. And as I was spending time with him, I actually had such a huge conversion to where I was spending 2 to 4 hours a day in adoration. It was kind of like looking into a mirror and coming to know my true identity. Because, I grew up finding my identity in everything other and what others thought of me, and success, and having boyfriend, being popular, being pretty, or whatever it was, everything external. But when I discovered the pearl of great price, Jesus in the Eucharist, it was like looking into a mirror as I was in adoration and coming to know my true identity. He started calling me forth and helping me to know who I am in him. And so as I was spending this time with Jesus, because I used to think that religious life was like so foreign to me, and you may be able to relate to this. I used to say, how can you be the bride of someone you can't see or hear or feel, right? And so here I am before Jesus in the Eucharist, and I'm starting to see him with my spiritual eyes, to hear him in the silence of my heart, and to feel him in the depths of my soul. And so I said, Jesus, I really could be your bride. And I started to grow in this intimacy, because I always longed for intimacy growing up. That's why I longed to get married. But I wasn't realizing that, in fact, I can have a profound intimacy with the most perfect spouse, with Jesus, this intimacy. And so as I was growing in this intimacy, that drew me to want to give my life fully to him. And so from there, I had these flames burning in my heart to spread devotion to Mary and the Eucharist, because they drew me to happiness, to purpose in life in such a profound way. And I needed to grow an inner healing of the heart. And so I was involved in that as well. And so when Sister Mary Claire met me, our charisms are Marian, Eucharistic, contemplative, and receptive, so that our hearts are disposed, so our hearts are fertile ground. And so that's kind of like, in a little nutshell, where I was drawn to the religious life. And St. Francis is, I was led to a Franciscan community up in Steubenville, Ohio. For 13 years, I was with them. And for a little while with other communities, just discerning different communities, saying, where do I fit? But it was because I had this burning in my heart, and these charisms already burning in my heart, that it was hard for me to fit in another community who had different charisms. Usually when you join a religious community, you join and you're formed in those charisms. So you have a certain blank slate, in a sense, to be formed in those charisms. But I had this, it was ingrained in my heart already, these charisms. And so for so long, we tried to make it work. My community and we all did, because they wanted me to stay as well. But then it was discerned, I discerned that it was really, I needed to go forward in a call within a call. And so that's, yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, I've heard her story over and over again, and I never get tired of it. The story is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So
It's so amazing how, I was gonna say, it's so amazing how you met this couple who went to Medjugorje and they had this amazing story, and like that one contact created this beautiful future for you. It's amazing the impact of just a couple people.
I know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah, so then Sister Mary Claire, when we met, she had the same charisms resonating in her heart.
Right.
And so that's where we were drawn together.
And now you're probably going to ask now, how did I ever feel drawn to the religious life? Okay, right? Is that what you're asking? Well, when I was 21 years old is when I actually entered the religious life. Now, before that, I was not interested. I was doing everything that young people do. And I love to go out dancing, and I love to go out, of course you go to those places and there's a lot of drinking and dancing and all of that. And I was just really like this fun loving person, at least I thought anyway. And so I would go like every weekend, to this, every Friday night, every Saturday night, sometimes during the week, I'd go to these places. And I had an experience, but before I go to that experience though, God was doing something in my heart, because more and more I was being drawn to the Eucharist. And I was born and raised Catholic, but what happened to me at the age of 17 was very profound. I had my mother and father were devout Catholics. My father is deceased now. He died of cancer. But they were very, very devout. And my father wanted me to go to Mass with him early in the morning. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was a senior in high school. And Dad he wakes me up and he goes, "Will you come with me to Mass?" And I looked at him and I said, "Dad," I said, "you have 3 other children. Why are you asking me?" And he looked at me and he says, "Because I know you'll do it. You just have that kind of heart. I know you'll do it." Well, of course, that stabbed me right in the heart, when he said that. And I was like feeling guilty. So I said, "Okay, Dad, I'll go with you this time," And so I went to Mass with him. So he didn't like to go by himself, he wanted to always have someone with him. He's just a people person, and so I went with him, and then I went with him again, and then I went with him again. And it just it did something to my heart, going to Mass before school. And I remember, he challenged me. That was the thing. He said, "I want you to go every day for 1 month." I said, "I can handle that, no problem, And so I went for 1 month. And when my time was up, I was like, "Good girl, you did it," And so for the rest of the week, I didn't go to Mass. And I really felt an emptiness inside. I really felt empty. And I was like, why do I feel this way? And I went, "Oh, I'm not going to Mass anymore on a daily basis." So then it was then that I decided to go to daily Mass as a 17-year-old, And I said, I'm going to do this without my dad even telling me. I'm just going to get dressed and I'm going to go with him. Well, I think he was really shocked, but he was pleasantly surprised, and that was like the beginning for me, opening doors. But then when I started working at the bank, and I started becoming more and more independent, I started drinking more and going out and partying and all that. And I was kind of putting our Lord over here. And I was just saying, I'll just go to church on Sunday and maybe I'll go to Mass. No. Actually, I was going to Mass on Tuesday nights, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And so I was doing that. And I know it was Our Lady that gave me my vocation. There's no doubt. So I'm going, and my father, he sees that I'm kind of not doing God's will. And one day he was watching Mother Angelica on TV. And he said, sit down, I want you to see this nun. She's really, really funny. And I want you to just watch it a little bit before you go out. I was about to go out and party, okay? So I said, okay, I'll watch her, you know. So I sat down and I'm watching Mother Angelica, and I felt like she was talking to me, you know. And it was just very, very profound what she was saying about Jesus and the Eucharist and everything. So I looked at my dad and I said, wow, I said, she's great. I said, if ever I were to be a nun, that's the kind of nun I'd want to be. And I walked out the door, and the Lord was like, amen, you know? And so it ended up where when I was 21 years old, I actually ended up joining Mother Angelica's community.
Wow,
The
that's so cool.
Franciscans, yeah, when I was 21 years old. Long story how I ended up leaving, but I was there I've been religious in there for like almost 30 years,
Wow.
you know? Yeah. So, but anyway, so what happened to me was when I went to one of those dancing places, the Lord knew my heart was being pulled. You know how the youth, how we can like ride the fence and we can think we can get away with it? Like, you know, I can still have fun, and I can still go to church, and I can still be close to God, and I can still do this and that, and it's okay, you know. And I was rationalizing big time. And so one day this happened to me, I kid you not. A lot of people might go, what? Well, I was there on a date, and it was around 10:30 at night. We had just gotten there to one of these dancing places. And all of a sudden, I literally heard a male voice, and it said, would you find my mother here? I was like, would you find my mother here? And I was like, so I looked at my date and I said, excuse me, did you say something? And he said, no, I didn't say anything. So I was like, what in the world? So again, I heard it verbally, would you find my mother here? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, and I said, is this Jesus asking me if I would find his mother here? And I said, in my arrogance, I said, Jesus, you came to save sinners, so Mary would be here too, probably, because she would want to save sinners. So yeah, I guess Jesus, you know. That's how I was thinking, you know. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear the voice anymore physically, but interiorly in my heart, the voice said, do you want to do this when you're 30, 40, 50 years old? And I was like, and all of a sudden, Lizzie, everything around me went into slow motion. It was like I saw the way the girls were dancing very provocatively. I saw how the guys were all over them. I saw how the girls were dressed immodestly. I saw my eyes were open. It was like, here I was in the middle of all this, doing the same thing and dressing immodestly as well. And yet the Lord is like revealing to me in slow motion. And then that's when he said, do you want to do this when you're 30, 40, 50 years old? And I looked and I said, no, I can't imagine myself doing this when I'm 30, 40, 50 years old. And so the next thing you know, everything went back into normal motion. And I was left to myself, and I just went, oh my gosh. So I looked at my date, and he knew something was going on because he could see something was happening to me. And he didn't know what though, because I was just kind of just standing there, he said, you know. So the next thing you know, he says, are you okay? He said, did you have some sort of spiritual experience? And I went, yeah. And he says, can you talk to me about it? And I said, no. I said, can you please take me home? He goes, take you home? We just got here. I said, you don't understand. You got to take me home. So I went home, and I went into my bedroom, and I threw my fist up at God. And I said, what are you doing to me? Are you taking away all my fun? Like that. Yeah, I was arguing with him. And I said, how could you do this to me? Everybody else is doing it. And I could just feel in my heart that God was like, you're not everyone else. Do you need to do the same thing as everybody else? Are you wanting to go to hell just like everybody else just because they're doing it? But I could feel in my heart that the Lord was telling me, he was challenging me. And I said, you win. You win. You know, I said, there's nothing, you know, I can't say anything. And so it was from then on that I made the conscious decision not to go out partying, not to drink, not to say that, you know, people can do this in moderation, but for me, I knew that I needed to stop completely. And all of a sudden I could just feel when I would be in family gatherings and family situations, I felt like a fish out of water. And more and more I felt like, what is going on with me? You know, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like a fish out of water? Why am I so different? This is what I was feeling.
You felt like you needed something more.
I felt like I needed something more. And I was just like, but why, you know, why am I feeling, it was almost as if when I was outside in family gatherings, that I was there a little bit with them, but yet somewhere else in my heart. I don't know how to explain it. You know, it was like my heart wasn't fully within. It was strange because at that point, I started seeing things differently with, I guess God was giving me spiritual eyes. And so as I was looking around, I started seeing the emptiness in people's lives. I started to see how they really weren't happy. I started to see how the drinking and all that was not really making them happy. And they were becoming vulgar, you know, and the Lord was just showing me more and more that this was not his plan for us. That this isn't just about me, this is about you, this is about all of us. We're all in this together. It's not just because I'm a hermit now that all of a sudden I'm this holy person and I'm separate from anybody else. No, we affect each other and we're in this together.
And it's like we all have been created with a deep void within us, an infinite eros longing that even Pope Benedict speaks of. That we all have this deep eros longing that can never be sated with something finite, only with the infinite love of God. And so even if you're called to the married life, you're going to have this deep, infinite longing that only God can sate. And that's why we as consecrated are meant to be a witness to everyone of ultimately our calling, to validate everyone. Even if you're in the married life, we speak to married people all the time and give retreats at different times. And I can always see them kind of so consoled when we let them know that Jesus is the perfect bridegroom and he is the one that's going to sate that deepest longing. It's almost like a sigh of relief. Oh, good, because my husband's not. You know, it's not meaning they're not happy in their life to a degree, but the earthly marriage is going to pass away because all of us are called ultimately to the heavenly wedding feast with God, to be married to God, the perfect lover. And so
it's something that Sister and I really is both on our hearts. We love Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II, theology of the body. And you're familiar with that, right? Theology.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so the human and spiritual integration, you know, that God is calling us to, it's like we're not pushing down our sexuality in any way, shape, or form, but the beauty of who God has called us to be as woman. It's such a beautiful gift to the church, you know, and she is our model right here, Mama Mary. She's our
And
model.
the evil one is so good at distracting so many today, and in a special way, young people, to try seeking satisfaction in these finite things that are even against God's commandments.
Right.
Sexual impurity, which is so rampant everywhere, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual impurity. Ultimately, these deep wounds that people have for bonding and intimacy must start really with God is at the heart of it. It must, the source of all of this love, the love that everyone's longing for, that deep intimacy and communion, God has to be the source of it. And when he's not, it's going to fall very short. And you know, eventually people just need more and more, whether they're being drawn into a homosexual lifestyle and they think that's satisfying them for a while, but in fact, it never does, because they still have that deep, infinite longing for God. And so many are deceived. It's kind of like Satan puts this cloud over so many to prevent them from realizing the truth, that our Lord has the answer. He's the way, the truth, and the life. And the key is that we don't just have this up here spirituality, this lofty prayer like that's not, but rather that we come to Jesus with our whole heart. And we say, here I am, Lord, with all my wounds, with all my struggles, with all my disorders. I'm sharing with you fully who I am, and I'm inviting you into that.
Amen. I like the word, to play on the word intimacy, into me see. You know, I love that, you know, and that's what Sister and I, when we have any kind of retreats for people on a small scale, we speak to them about that and their human sexuality, and how God is calling it to be so much more than definitely what the world tells you. The world is always saying, oh, to be woman and feminine is, you know, you just go out and you flaunt your body and you just be sexy and you just, you know, but femininity is just something that is so sacred and something so beautiful. As a matter of fact, that's where you get to veil the mystery, you know, and that's why in tabernacles they have a veil, because it's a mystery, you know. And so it's like, and so for woman, you know, to cover herself in the proper way, to veil herself, because she is so beautifully made, and she is going to be carrying a life within her very womb, you know. And this is something that's so sacred and so beautiful. And I think many people are missing out on their real, true identity. I think we're having an identity crisis in the world today. It's like no one really, not no one, I shouldn't say no one, because there's a lot of people that don't have that. But for the majority, there is a lot of identity crisis out there, where people are not finding their identity in who God has made them to be. We've lost sight of our Creator and how He has created us in His image and likeness.
Thank you for sharing your stories. Those are so inspiring. It's so amazing learning how you got to where you are and just the freedom that you've experienced as hermits. That's so cool.
Well, it's true. Yeah, there's so much. And if I wish someone would have talked to me when I was younger, to tell me that God has created me with a very special purpose and mission for each one. Anyone hearing this right now, each one of us has a very unique mission that only we can fulfill. And the only way we'll really be satisfied and fulfilled in this life, to the degree we can be in this earthly life, is by responding to God's call in our lives and seeking His divine will.
When did you guys meet each other?
Sister and I met each other. It's funny, the story. It's amazing how God works, you know. But I was in a transitional stage, wondering where God was calling me to be. And so I went through, the church calls it exclaustration. That's a time of discerning and maybe possibly looking into other communities and so forth. So I was in another little fledgling community up north in Massachusetts. And the priest that was in charge of it, he says, go online, and he says, look up a peace rosary. We were called Apostles of Peace. And her website came up. And I'm looking at her website. It's a simple little website. And I said, who is this woman? And as I'm reading her website, I go, oh my goodness. I said, everything that is in that website, everything she's saying is right where my heart is. I got to meet this woman. I said, I got to meet her because, you know, I think sometimes that, you know, no one thinks like me, you know, and I go, wow, she thinks like me, you know? And so I looked her up, I started writing to her, I emailed her, and then we had a conversation on the telephone. And then I invited her to come to Massachusetts, but that was a little too far. She was in Louisiana. So she visited me in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where my mom lives. And that's how we first met. And as soon as I met her, I just was like, I could just sense the Blessed Mother big time, you know, in her.
It must be Mary's faithfulness, yes.
Mary's so good. And so I just was just drawn to her spirituality. And she also told me about how she had been involved in inner healing, you know, spiritual inner healing. And I was very attracted to that. I wanted to know more about that, you know, and that's how we met.
How long ago was that when you met?
7 years ago, about
2013.
Yeah.
2013.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have one final question. What advice would you give to a woman who is discerning becoming a nun?
Discerning becoming a nun. Well, first of all, I would say, go before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament and speak to him from your heart. Be raw and real with him and say, Jesus, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to be your bride? Do you want me? And Jesus wants you to be happy, okay? So try to...
And truth, just to say that, like St. Bernadette, Mary said, I can't promise you happiness in this life, but in the next.
Right.
But he does ultimately want us to be happy and
Right.
most fulfilled as we can be.
Right, because I remember Mother Angelica saying that to us too. She says, you know, God, he doesn't want you to be miserable in your vocation. He wants you to, you know, a lot of people think, well, and if I'm going to be a nun, I'm just going to be miserable because I have to sacrifice so much and this and that. Well, you're doing it for the wrong reasons then,
Right,
you know?
right.
And it's like, no, God, you have to talk to Jesus and you have to say, Lord, where is it that you're calling? If you're calling me to the religious life, then I ask you to please open the doors for me and let me be able to walk through those doors. And for me, you know, it happened. I mean, a priest came up to me and started talking to me about religious communities. And he talked to me about Mother Angelica's community. And the next thing you know, I said, that's the kind of community I'd want to visit, okay? And so you have to feel an at-homeness wherever you go. So if you feel at home in that certain community, then that's where God is calling you to be. Or if you are at home dating and thinking about marriage, then that's where you need to go, you know?
And what's very key also, really for everyone, is important to really establish a relationship with Jesus and
Right.
a daily prayer life.
Right.
To even help one discern their vocation, because as we both shared, I had no intention of becoming a sister. I mean, it was like the most boring life to me. I would never have chosen it for myself. If you ask my friends, they'd probably say, no way. But it's so important to, I mean, I had a supernatural grace that when God revealed, it was kind of like a St. Paul conversion where God revealed himself to me in a way, but not everyone is like that. but I knew I had to give my life to him. And so and then like I said, I started going to adoration. Even when I started going to adoration, I still was drawn to the earthly married life.
Right.
And I was very attracted to guys. And but as I was spending more time in prayer, it's like I began to know Jesus more, and it was helping me get in touch with that deeper longing and the mission and the grace that God had for me. I started to realize that what I was longing for was never going to be sated by an earthly marriage.
Right.
And I was told when I was discerning the consecrated life that I should spend some time imagining myself married and praying about that, and then spend time imagining myself in religious life or consecrated life. And so I did. I started imagining myself married. I was in adoration one day, and I was looking up at the crucifix, and I was seeing the beauty of the sacrament of matrimony and how the husband and wife really give themselves to one another. And then I sensed Jesus saying to me, I want you to give your life to me in that way, and to my church. And I was also told this, be attentive. So when I would imagine myself married, there was always this like deeper longing, like, oh, what if I had become a sister or consecrated to God? It was like I could tell it was deeper. It was a deeper gnawing, a deeper longing that would always surface, if I was starting to date someone or whatever. There was always this, what if, like almost like,
yeah, me too.
There's something more that I'm longing for.
Yeah.
And so, but sometimes when someone is called to the married life, and there's been a number of women that I've connected with through the years, and if they would pray about it or even try the religious life for a little while, and there's always this, but what if, like, what if, and imagining themselves in a family and that being the deeper longing.
Right.
But for me, I never would have even felt called to the religious life if I didn't first start fostering a relationship with God. And it first came through praying the rosary, for responding to our mother's call, praying the rosary, consecrating my life to marriage.
Yes.
As she said, abandon yourself totally to me and I will lead you in God's perfect will. And that's like the primary encouragement I would have for anyone discerning their vocation. Really consecrate your life to Mary and really ask her to intercede for you to know. And the key is this is a daily thing. Consecration to Mary is not a one-time thing that we do up here. It's a relationship. It's a mother-child relationship where every day we say, Mother, what must I do? And let her carry us in her arms. It's so profound. This is part of our mission that is at the heart of it, is how profound consecration to Mary really is, how radical it really is. It's so freeing when someone really gets to that.
It's not just a one-time thing, like, oh, I made my consecration to Our Lady, It's so much deeper than that. It's a daily saying, I don't have any problems of my own. I've given it over to Jesus and Mary. I've given it to Mary. Mary, it's your problem. It's like coronavirus, whatever, coming around. We can get all worried about it and all fearful and everything, and we go, Mary, I consecrated myself to you. It's your problem.
Right. We have, say a tsunami is coming at us. Like right now, you see a tsunami coming at you. Mother, take over. But I mean, whatever it is, if you're in an earthquake, Mother, take over. Because Mary's whole role, she takes us by the hand, she takes us into her arms, and she leads us to be open to the grace of the present moment. She leads us to be under the spout where God's grace is pouring out in the present moment. And because God will always give us the grace for whatever He asks of us.
Right.
But the question is, are we disposed to that grace in the present moment? And that's the grace of consecration to Mary. She helps us to be disposed to God's grace and his presence in the present moment.
Right, and there's a natural fear that we have. Say, for instance, if a bear is chasing us, we're going to have fear. You know, we're going to run away from that bear, and we want to get away, and we have this natural fear. And that's okay. You know, God put that in us, and we're going to have that. And that's a natural thing. It's a self-preservation.
It's very useful sometimes.
It is very useful. But what we're saying is that not living in that perpetual fear and saying, you know, I've consecrated myself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and I'm placing myself in their hand, in their heart. I'm going in the womb of the heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and I'm taking that refuge in her. That's what she keeps saying, come into the refuge of my Immaculate Heart. A refuge is a safe place, right? So it's like, I'm gonna go into that refuge of her Immaculate Heart, trusting that she has it under control. Jesus has a plan, she has a plan, and they work as a team.
And you know, the most exciting thing about it is Mary is in heaven.
Yeah.
We're in her Immaculate Heart. Guess what?
We're in a part of heaven.
We're in a part of paradise here on earth.
Right.
And it's really the truth. It's the truth, but most people don't realize it, because when we leave this life, it's really our bodies are passing away, but we're going to walk on through, you know, wherever we're to go. We're going to still be conscious. You know, we're going to go on to the next, but so we can be living that reality right now, living a part of heaven here on earth.
Because if we live that now, then when serious things happen and plagues come, natural disasters, whatever come our way, if we're living in this way that we're talking about now, living and taking refuge in the heart of Mary, then it's going to be a lot easier for us to enter into her heart in the midst of all the suffering, the pain, the chaos, and all of that.
Right.
So we need to start now.
If we
Start now.
And you know, a lot of Catholics or Protestants have asked me through the years, they've said, well, isn't Mary an obstacle to Jesus? Why not go straight to Jesus? And the key is, if you think of Jesus, here he is suffering and dying on the cross, and it's because he's a jealous God that he gives us Mary. Because he's looking down, a jealous God in a good sense. God is a jealous God for love of us, for our love. So Jesus is looking down and seeing this woman so receptive to his love with every fiber of his being, and loving
every fiber of
her being, and loving him in return with every fiber of her being. And it says, so when Jesus says, behold your mother to John and behold your son to Mary, he's saying it to every one of his beloved disciples, to each of us who want to be beloved disciples. The church teaches this. So it's like he's saying, I want Mary to teach you to be receptive to my love and to love me in return wholeheartedly. And I want you to know the love of a perfect mother, as I did. He says, because you're going to need that in your own Calvary.
Amen.
So anyway, I know we're going on and on, but you can see there's always so much to share.
Yeah, no, this is beautiful. That was such a perfect example. I love how you talked about God being a jealous God, but her attention is fully towards him. And so it's not at all taking the focus away from him, because her focus so strongly is on God and on Jesus. So
Exactly. And that's her whole desire. And she has such a love for all of her children. Everyone watching this right now, Mary's heart is so filled with love, the tender motherly love. It's like Sister Mary Claire and I have both come to know Mary very personally and intimately. Even though you can't see her right now, she's with us. Well, you can see her, but we have come to know her in a way that the ways that my beloved, my beautiful earthly mother, very beautiful woman who passed away already. The ways that she was imperfect in loving me, I've been able to have our Heavenly Mother take up the slack and love me so intimately. I've been able to bond with her in ways that I never did with my earthly mother. And she as well. And we often talk about this because there are many women who struggle with homosexual tendencies. And we have no doubt that if they open that longing in their hearts for a woman's love, it's really the deep mother love of a mother, the perfect love of a perfect mother. And we, no doubt, our Heavenly Mother would sate those deep longings. There would be great healing. And we say the same for men with homosexual tendencies, and men with heterosexual tendencies who are into pornography and everything. If they really were opening that to marriage, and the men with homosexual, if they open it to our Heavenly Father, to Jesus, to invite them into that room of longing for intimacy, because it's never will be fulfilled, as you know as well, by any of this finite, deceptive, distractions of the evil one.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for all of this. This was like so much amazing wisdom. Like, I personally learned so much from this conversation. So I super appreciate both of you being on here and your vulnerability and all your love and joy. So anyone who thinks that nuns do not have fun or aren't happy or aren't joyful, this completely changed their mind, because you guys are so happy. So
praise God.
Well, it is true. It's so funny because, I always had a lot of fun with my friends growing up. I say fun, but never so much fun as now. I have to say, it's like that's why we have to put boundaries on, spending time together with each other, because we have too much fun.
We do. We're always laughing at something, together, and
the joy of the Lord
it's the joy of the Lord.
When you know God's love and you seek to live in that. We're very frail. We're both, have so much to grow in, but still, it's such a joy when you're free in Jesus.
Right. And I know people would say, well, don't y'all ever get angry at each other? Don't you get mad at each other? Don't you have problems with each other just like everybody else does? Well, here's the thing. Sister and I have grown so much in our communication with one another. Normally, a lot of times people, when they're having problems with each other, they're letting things build up, okay? And then it'll come out sideways and they get very angry. We don't even give ourselves a chance to build anything up. That's the key in a good relationship. She and I know each other so well that she'll say, what's going on in your heart right now? I see that you're getting a little irritated. Is there something going on? And then I get in touch with, or she gets in touch with what's going on in our own hearts, what's causing this friction, and immediately we know where to go now.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's key that you grow within yourself in that inner bonding, so that you can know more and more who you are with one another, because when you're not in that inner bonding yourself, then you're needing someone else to be for you in a way, and there's an expectation or a demand. But when you're free within yourself, and the more you grow in that and with our Lord, then you're freer to grow and grow in self-knowledge and learn from difficulties in relationship. It can be a tremendous grace.
Amen. But
thank you so much.
Like I said, consecration to Mary is radical. And she's alive, just as Jesus is. And she says, blessed are those who do not see but believe, as she, the same that Jesus tells us. She reportedly said that in Medjugorje. I'm just as present with anyone who calls upon us as the missionaries and blessed are those who do not see but believe. So this is what Mary will do for anyone out there who is consecrated to Mary or wants to be consecrated to her. So take this to heart, really. Imagine Mary saying it to you. She says,
We can let her look at this
Yeah.
one instead, and you can do that.
okay, accustom yourself to a new way of thinking. It is not your place to think of what is best for you. Let it be I who build moment by moment your future. Be ever in my heart, and at each moment you will find peace. Do not be worried about what you are to do. One who has consecrated herself to me belongs totally to me. She cannot at any moment of the day decide freely what she is to do with herself. If you remain with me, I will tell you at every moment what I would like for you to do. And then whatever you do will always be according to my will, the perfect will of God. I will take you by the hand, and together we will do everything. With you, I am like a mother who is teaching its child to take its first steps. Live with perfect love and perfect abandonment the present, which I, moment by moment, arrange for you, my little babe. You are no longer alone. You always have with you the mother who takes you by the hand, who clasps you to her immaculate heart.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's so cool that you guys have it memorized. I love that.
Oh, yes.
That's our favorite prayer.
It's the heart of our
It's the-
spirituality.
Yeah.
We have a prayer that we made out of it, and we say, Mother, here we are. And we prearrange everything. So she prearranged this right now.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.